Imagine a place on Earth so vast and empty, it feels like the surface of another planet. This is the Nazca Desert in southern Peru, a landscape stretching for hundreds of square miles under a relentless, scorching sun. It's one of the driest places in the world, a timeless expanse of reddish-brown earth and pale, dusty plains, where rain might not fall for years, even decades. The silence here is profound, broken only by the whisper of the wind sweeping across the barren plain. It's a silence that seems to hold secrets, a quiet that has endured for millennia. From the ground, the desert appears as an endless, monotonous canvas. You could walk for days and see nothing but the shimmering heat haze on the horizon and the stark, rugged beauty of the Andes Mountains far and feet. The landscape is a study in simplicity, earth, stone, and sky. It's a place that feels ancient, untouched by the modern world, as if time itself decided to stand still. This stark beauty is both intimidating and mesmerizing. The sheer scale of it makes you feel small, a tiny speck in an immense, silent world. But this seemingly empty desert holds one of humanity's most baffling and magnificent mysteries, hidden in plain sight. Etched into the very surface of this arid land are the Nazca Lines. These aren't just simple markings. They are colossal geoglyphs, enormous drawings of animals, plants, and strange geometric shapes. There's a monkey with a swirling tail, a spider so detailed you can see its every leg, a hummingbird with its long beak, poised as if ready to sip nectar, and a condor with a massive wingspan. Alongside these figures are hundreds of straight lines, some stretching for miles with perfect precision, as well as trapezoids, spirals, and triangles. The truly mind-boggling thing about these designs is their scale. They are so gigantic that you can recognize what they are when you are standing on the ground. They are completely invisible from my level. To see them, to truly comprehend their form, you have to be high in the sky, looking down from an aeroplane. Only from the air do these scattered lines and grooves merge into coherent, breathtaking images. This raises the immediate, and still unanswered, question. Why would a civilization create art so massive that it could only be appreciated from a perspective they supposedly could unachieve? These lines were created by the Nazca people, a culture that flourished in this region between 100 BC and 800 AD, long before the Inca Empire rose to power. Using a deceptively simple technique, they carefully removed the reddish-brown iron oxide-coated pebbles that cover the desert floor. This exposed the lighter-colored, sandy earth. The contrast between the dark surface and the light ground created the lines. Because of the extremely dry, windless, and stable climate of the Nazca Plateau, these fragile drawings have been remarkably preserved for over 1,500 years, a silent testament to their creators. The Nazca people were not just artists, they were sophisticated engineers and astronomers. They built complex underground aqueducts, known as puquios, to channel water from underground sources, allowing them to farm in one of the world's most inhospitable environments. These incredible irrigation systems, many of which are still in use today, show a deep understanding of hydrology and geology. Their society was complex, with skilled artisans creating some of the most beautiful polychrome pottery in the ancient world, adorned with images of gods, animals, and daily life. They were a people deeply connected to their environment, a connection that is likely key to understanding the purpose of the lines. So, why did they create them? This is the central enigma of Nazca. For decades, researchers, archaeologists, and enthusiasts have proposed countless theories, ranging from the scientific to the fantastical. One of the earliest and most famous researchers was Maria Reich, a German mathematician and archaeologist who dedicated her life to studying and preserving the lines. She became known as the Lady of the Lines. Reich believed the geoglyphs formed a massive astronomical calendar, with the lines and animal figures aligning with the positions of the sun, moon, and stars during important times of the year, like the solstices. She argued that the figures were celestial maps, helping the Nazca people track seasons for agriculture. For instance, the monkey figure, she suggested, might represent the Big Dipper, a constellation associated with rain in some traditions. Another popular theory suggests the lines are connected to water rituals, In such a dry region, water was life. Some scholars proposed that the lines were ceremonial pathways. People would walk along them during religious rituals, perhaps as a form of prayer or pilgrimage to appease the gods and ask for rain. The animal figures might represent powerful deities or spirits associated with water and fertility. The long, straight lines could point to sacred mountains or underground water sources, acting as a kind of ritual map of the sacred landscape. This theory connects the lines directly to the Nazca's most vital need: survival in the desert. Then there are the more out-there ideas. The most famous of these was popularized in the 1960s by author Erich von Däniken in his book, Chariots of the Gods. He proposed that the Nazca Lines were runways for ancient alien spacecraft. The idea captured the public imagination and is still widely known today. While it's a thrilling thought, archaeologists have found no evidence to support it. There are no signs of scorching, compacted Earth, or any of the physical traces you'd expect from spacecraft landings. Moreover, the ground itself is quite soft and wouldn't support heavy vehicles. Other theories suggest the Nazca people might have been able to see the lines themselves. Some researchers have experimented with creating hot air balloons using only the materials and technology available to the Nazca, such as woven textiles and reeds. They successfully built and flew a rudimentary balloon, proving it was theoretically possible for the Nazca to have gained an aerial perspective. Did they fly over their own creations? It's a fascinating possibility. But again, there's no direct archaeological evidence. No balloon remnants, no definitive depictions of flight in their art. As we continue to study the lines with modern technology like drones and satellite imaging, we're discovering even more. New figures are still being found, hidden for centuries, or too faint to be seen until now. These new discoveries, some attributed to the earlier Paracas and Tapara cultures, showed that the tradition of creating geoglyphs in this desert is even older and more complex than we thought. Each new discovery adds another piece to this incredible puzzle, yet the complete picture remains just out of reach. The Nazca Lines are more than just an archaeological wonder. They are a profound connection to a lost world, a message etched into the earth by an ancient people. They challenge our understanding of the past and the capabilities of early civilizations. Were they a calendar? A map to water? A sacred path for pilgrims? Or something else entirely that we can't yet imagine? The silence of the Nazca Desert keeps its secrets well. But as we gaze down upon these enigmatic shapes from the sky, we are filled with a sense of wonder and a deep respect for the people who created this magnificent, open-air art gallery. They left behind a mystery for the ages, a silent question written across the face of the earth, waiting for us to one day, perhaps, find the answer. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into the past, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more adventures into the world's greatest mysteries. Imagine you're soaring high above a vast, empty desert. The year is 1927. You're a pilot, one of the first to fly commercial routes over the desolate plains of southern Peru. Below you, there's nothing but endless shades of brown and beige, a seemingly barren landscape stretching to the horizon. But then, as the sun hits the ground at just the right angle, you see something impossible. Something that makes you question your own eyes. Etched into the desert floor are enormous shapes, figures so massive they could only be truly seen from the sky. This wasn't a mirage. This was the moment the Nazca Lines were revealed to the modern world, and it was a discovery that would change archaeology forever. What these early pilots saw was a sprawling canvas of geoglyphs, gigantic drawings created by removing the reddish-brown iron oxide-coated pebbles that cover the surface of the Nazca Desert. By clearing away this top layer, they exposed the lighter-colored subsoil, creating lines of stunning contrast. And these weren't just simple lines. They were intricate, stylized depictions of animals and plants. A monkey with a spiraling tail, a hummingbird with a long, elegant beak, poised as if sipping nectar, a spider perfectly rendered, a massive condor with a wingspan stretching hundreds of feet. Alongside these figures were hundreds of geometric shapes, triangles, rectangles, and trapezoids, plus enormous spirals and straight lines that crisscross the plateau, some stretching for miles, perfectly straight, defying the uneven terrain. The sheer scale of these creations is mind-boggling. The hummingbird, for example, is over 300 feet long. The condor is 440 feet. The monkey is about 330 feet long. To put that into perspective, imagine a football field. Some of these figures are as long, or even longer. And remember, the people who made these had no way of seeing their work from above. They couldn't climb a nearby mountain to get a bird's-eye view, because the surrounding landscape is remarkably flat. So how did they do it? How did an ancient culture, with no modern technology, create such precise and massive figures that could only be fully appreciated from the sky? This was the question that immediately captivated the pilots, and soon after, the entire world. The first person to seriously study the lines was a Peruvian archaeologist named Toribio Mejia Zespi. In 1927, while hiking through the foothills, he stumbled upon some of the lines, but it was from the ground, so he couldn't grasp their full scope. He thought they were sacred roads. It wasn't until the 1930s and 40s, as more pilots reported these strange desert markings, that the true nature of the discovery began to sink in. This wasn't just a collection of paths, it was a gallery of giants, a message etched into the earth. The man who truly brought the Nazca Lines to global attention was Paul Kosak, an American historian from Long Island University. In 1941, he came to Peru to study ancient irrigation systems. While flying over the Nazca region, he too was mesmerized by the lines. He called them the largest astronomy book in the world. His theory was that the lines were a giant astronomical calendar used to track the sun, the moon, and the stars. He noticed that some of the lines pointed directly to the position of the sun on the horizon during the winter and summer solstices. This was a revolutionary idea. Could it be that this ancient civilization had created a complex celestial map, using the desert itself as their parchment? Kosak's work was continued by a German mathematician and archaeologist named Maria Reich. She would become the most famous and dedicated researcher of the lines, so much so that she became known as the Lady of the Lines. Arriving in the 1940s, Reich dedicated her entire life to studying, measuring, and preserving these incredible geoglyphs. She lived near the desert, often in very basic conditions, and would spend her days walking the plains, meticulously cleaning the lines with a broom, mapping them out on paper, and fighting to protect them from damage. She believed, like Kosak, that the lines had an astronomical and calendrical purpose. She proposed that the animal figures might represent constellations. The spider, for instance, could be linked to the constellation Orion. The monkey could be related to the Big Dipper. Maria Reich's dedication was heroic. She used her own money to pay for guards to protect the site and campaigned tirelessly for its preservation. She would stand on the Pan-American Highway, which cuts right through the area, shooing away tourists and trucks that threatened to destroy the delicate etchings. Thanks to her efforts, a large part of the Nazca Lines area was eventually protected, and in 1994, it was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Her theory was that the Nazca people used sophisticated surveying techniques. They would likely create a small-scale model, and then use wooden stakes and long ropes to scale it up, plotting out points and connecting them to form the massive figures. It was a simple but effective method, requiring incredible precision and a deep understanding of geometry. Think about the sheer ambition of it all. This wasn't a project completed in a year or two. It's believed the Nazca culture created these lines over several centuries, from around 500 BCE to 500 CE. Generations of people contributed to this monumental work. But why? The astronomical calendar theory is compelling, but it doesn't explain everything. Why the animals? Why the complex, beautiful figures of hummingbirds and lizards? Another theory suggests the lines were related to water and fertility rituals. The Nazca Desert is one of the driest places on Earth. Water was, and still is, the most precious resource. Some researchers believe the lines were ceremonial pathways. People would walk along them, perhaps as part of a religious procession, to petition the gods for rain and fertile harvests. The animal figures might represent these gods or spirits. The hummingbird, for example, is often associated with rain in Andean cultures. Walking the lines could have been a form of prayer, a physical act of devotion on a colossal scale. Then there are the more outlandish theories. In the 1960s, Author Eric von Däniken published his book, Chariots of the Gods, which proposed that the Nazca Lines were actually landing strips for alien spacecraft. He argued that the figures were signals to extraterrestrial visitors, and the long, straight lines were runways. While this idea captured the public's imagination and made the Nazca Lines famous worldwide, it has been overwhelmingly rejected by scientists and archaeologists. There's no evidence to support it. The lines are not runways. Many are not straight, and the ground is too soft to support any kind of aircraft landing. The figures are better explained by the culture and beliefs of the people who actually live there. What's amazing is that even today, we're still finding new lines with the help of satellite imagery and drones. Researchers are constantly discovering smaller, fainter geoglyphs, many of them on hillsides that were previously unknown. Some of these newly discovered figures were actually made by the Paracas and Tapara cultures, which predate the Nazca. This tells us that the tradition of drawing on the desert floor is even older and more widespread than we once thought. It was a practice that spanned over 1,000 years and involved multiple cultures. The discovery from the sky in the 1920s didn't just give us a new archaeological puzzle. It gave us a profound connection to an ancient people. It forced us to reconsider what primitive cultures were capable of. The Nazca people may not have had writing as we know it, but they wrote their stories on the land itself. They created art not for a human audience on the ground, but perhaps for their gods in the sky. Or maybe, just maybe, they had a perspective, a way of understanding their world that we are only just beginning to grasp. The first glimpse from a pilot's window was just the beginning of a story that continues to unfold, a mystery that draws us back to the desert, again and again, to look up at the sky and wonder. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more journeys into the mysteries of the past. Welcome, Bike History Explorers. Today, we re-journeying to a place where the earth itself holds secrets drawn by ancient hands thousands of years ago. We're talking about the Nazca Lines in southern Peru. And the key to their incredible survival isn't just the mystery of their creation, but the very land they're etched into. Imagine a vast, sun-drenched coastal plain sandwiched between the Andes Mountains and the Pacific Ocean. This is the Nazca Desert, one of the driest places on Earth. It's so arid that in some areas, rain hasn't fallen for centuries. Yes, you heard that right, centuries. This isn't your typical sandy desert with rolling dunes. Instead, it's a pampa, a flat, stony plain covered in dark, reddish-brown pebbles coated with iron oxide. Think of it as a giant, natural canvas baked hard by the relentless sun. So, how do you draw on a canvas like this? The Nazca people were brilliant. They didn't add pigment. They simply removed the top layer. By clearing away the dark sun-scorched stones, they exposed the lighter, yellowish-white sand and clay underneath. This simple contrast created the lines, the giant hummingbirds, spiders, and human-like figures that we see today. The lines themselves are surprisingly shallow, usually only about 10 to 15 centimeters deep. It's a testament to how little the surface has changed over 2,000 years. But why haven't they just blown away or been washed out? This is where the magic of the Nazca climate comes into play. The first hero in this story of preservation is the lack of rain. With an average rainfall of less than a few millimeters a year, there's virtually no water erosion to wash away these shallow etchings. The lines remain crisp and clear, just as their creators left them. If this were a wetter region, these delicate drawings would have vanished in a single rainy season. The second hero is the lack of wind. You might expect a vast, open plain to be a wind tunnel, but Nazca is remarkably calm. The heat from the sun-baked ground creates a cushion of warm air near the surface. This layer acts like a protective shield, deflecting the stronger winds that blow higher up. So, while winds might gust overhead, down on the ground where the lines are, the air is often still. This means the lighter sand underneath isn't scoured away by constant wind erosion. The third and final element is the composition of the ground itself. The soil contains a high amount of lime. When the rare morning mist or dew settles to only significant moisture, the area it mixes with the lime. As the sun heats up, this moisture evaporates, and the lime acts like a natural cement, hardening the surface and binding the stones together. It's like the earth is constantly reapplying a light, protective glue, helping to hold the lines in place. So, You have this incredible trifecta. Almost no rain to wash the lines away, very little wind to blow them apart, and a soil that essentially sets itself like a weak concrete. It's a perfect, almost miraculous combination of geological and climatic factors. The Nazca people might not have understood the precise science behind it, but they clearly knew their environment was special. They chose a canvas that nature itself was destined to protect. This extreme environment wasn't just a convenient place to draw. It was a challenging place to live. The same conditions that preserved the lines made life for the Nazca people a constant struggle for water and resources. This harshness is deeply connected to the meaning of the lines themselves. Many researchers believe the geoglyphs were part of elaborate rituals, appealing to the gods for water. The figures of spiders, monkeys, and birds weren't just random doodles. They were powerful symbols tied to water and fertility in Nazca cosmology. The spider was seen as a sign of rain, and many of the birds, like the hummingbird and pelican, are associated with water sources. Think about it. In a land defined by its dryness, the most prominent and lasting cultural artifacts are giant pleas for rain, etched into the very earth that denies it. The geoglyphs become a dialogue between a people and their environment, a conversation that has been perfectly preserved for us to witness. When you look at an aerial photograph of the Nazca Lines, you're not just seeing ancient art. You're seeing the result of a unique geological fingerprint, a climatic anomaly that has turned this arid patch of Peru into one of the world's greatest outdoor museums. The land is not just the backdrop for the Nazca Lines. It is an active participant in their story. Its harsh, unforgiving nature is precisely what has granted them a form of immortality. The same sun that baked the ground and made life difficult for the Nazca people now protects their legacy. It's a beautiful irony. The earth holds these drawings in a timeless embrace, preserving the questions and beliefs of a culture that disappeared long ago. We are incredibly fortunate that this corner of the world is so inhospitable, because its harshness is our window into the past. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the land of the Nazca. It's a reminder that sometimes the most challenging environments create the most enduring wonders. If you found this fascinating, hit that like button and subscribe for more journeys into the world's greatest mysteries. We'll see you in the next chapter. Hello and welcome back to our journey through the mysteries of ancient civilizations. Today, we're diving deep into Chapter 4. The Nazca people, masters of the desert. For centuries, the world has been fascinated by the giant geoglyphs etched into the desert floor of southern Peru, the famous Nazca Lines. But who were the enigmatic people who created them? What was their world like? That's what we're here to find out. Let's travel back in time, to a period stretching from roughly 200 BCE to 600 CE. This is the era of the Nazca culture, a society that didn't just survive, but truly thrived in one of the driest places on Earth. Forget sprawling stone cities or grand pyramids. The Nazca were masters of a different domain. The arid, coastal plains, river valleys, and stark desert landscapes. Their story is one of incredible ingenuity, artistic brilliance, and a profound connection to the very land they inhabited. To understand the creators of the lines, we must first understand their daily lives. The Nazca weren't a single, unified empire ruled by a king. Instead, they were likely a collection of local chiefdoms and communities, centered around fertile river valleys that cut through the desert like green ribbons. Their main hub was a ceremonial center known as Kawachi, a place of pilgrimage and ritual, but not a densely populated city in the way we might think of one. Kawachi was a sacred landscape, a place where people gathered for important events, to honor their gods, and to reinforce the bonds of their society. Life here was a constant negotiation with the environment. Water was the most precious resource, the very essence of life. And this is where we see the first sign of Nazca genius, their mastery of water management. They developed an extraordinary system of underground aqueducts, known as puquios. These weren't just simple ditches. They were sophisticated subterranean canals, sometimes running for several kilometers, tapping into underground water sources to irrigate their fields. Imagine the skill and knowledge required. The Nazca engineers had to understand geologies, hydrologies, and precise gradients to build these channels. Many puquios are still functioning today, over 1,500 years later, a testament to their incredible engineering prowess. This system allowed them to cultivate crops like maize, beans, squash, and cotton, in a place that receives almost no rainfall. They transformed the desert into a garden, securing their food supply and allowing their culture to flourish. This deep understanding of the earth and its hidden waters is a crucial piece of the puzzle. It shows us a people who were not just living on the land, but were in constant dialogue with it, reading its signs and working in harmony with its cycles. But the Nazca weren't just brilliant engineers. They were also phenomenal artists. Their pottery is some of the most beautiful and intricate in the ancient Americas. Unlike earlier cultures that used incised designs, the Nazca perfected a technique of using multiple colors of slip, a mixture of fine clay and mineral pigments before feeding. This allowed them to create vibrant, polychrome ceramics that are like paintings on clay. Their vessels depict a rich and complex world. We see farmers tending their crops, fishermen with their nets, and warriors in ceremonial attire. But most strikingly, we see their cosmology come to life. Their pottery is a bestiary of mythical beings. Fierce, whiskered feline creatures, bird-like figures with human features, and what archaeologists call the anthropomorphic mythical being. A powerful deity often depicted holding a human head and a staff. These weren't just decorations. Each image was a story, a prayer, a connection to the spiritual realm that governed their existence. They painted scenes of ritual, warfare, and decapitation, suggesting that trophy heads played a significant role in their religious practices, perhaps as offerings to ensure fertility and agricultural abundance. Through their ceramics, the Nazca left us a vivid and sometimes startling window into their beliefs and daily concerns. Equally breathtaking are their textiles. Using cotton from their fields and wool from llamas and alpacas, Nazca weavers created stunning fabrics. They employed a vast array of complex weaving techniques to produce elaborate tapestries, clothing, and shrouds for their dead. The designs on these textiles often mirror the motifs found on their pottery, with geometric patterns, stylized animals, and supernatural beings rendered in a dazzling array of colors. These textiles were not just functional items, they were symbols of status, wealth, and spiritual power. Wrapping the deceased in layers of these beautiful fabrics was a crucial part of the journey to the afterlife, ensuring the person was well equipped for the next world. So, we have a picture of a people who were skilled engineers, brilliant artists, and deeply spiritual. They lived in a world where the natural and supernatural were intertwined. Their survival depended on their ability to manage water, and their spiritual life was rich with powerful deities and complex rituals, many of which were likely aimed at placating the forces of nature to ensure agricultural success. They lived in small, scattered communities, but came together at ceremonial centers like Kawachi to perform rites that bound them together. This is the context we need. This is the world from which the Nazca Lines emerged. These were not the creations of a primitive tribe, but of a sophisticated culture with a deep understanding of their environment, a complex social structure, and a vibrant artistic and spiritual tradition. They had the organizational capacity to mobilize labor for large-scale projects, whether it was digging kilometers of underground canals or clearing away stones on the desert floor. They had the artistic vision to create stylized figures of immense scale. And they had the spiritual drive, a powerful why, that compelled them to undertake such a monumental task. When we ask who made the Nazca Lines, the answer lies right here. It was the farmer who relied on the pukus for his harvest. It was the potter who painted the mythical beings onto clay vessels. It was the weaver who interlaced threads of cotton and wool into sacred patterns. It was the priest who presided over ceremonies at Kawachi. It was a society that saw the desert not as an empty wasteland, but as a giant canvas, a sacred space upon which they could communicate with their gods. The lines weren't created in a vacuum. They are the ultimate expression of the Nazca worldview. They are the pukios, the pottery, and the textiles all rolled into one, writ large upon the face of the earth. As we move forward to analyze the lines themselves, remember the people who made them. Remember their ingenuity, their artistry, and their profound relationship with the desert they called home. Only then can we begin to truly understand the purpose and meaning of these incredible Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the world of the Nazca people. I hope it gives you a richer appreciation for the culture behind the lines. If you enjoyed this, please hit that like button And be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next chapter, where we'll walk the lines themselves and explore the theories of why they were made. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. Ever wondered how an ancient civilization, without planes or drones, could create designs so massive they can only be truly appreciated from the sky? Let us journey back in time to the arid plains of Peru and unravel the monumental mystery of the Nazca Lines. It's a story of incredible ingenuity, precision, and a deep connection to the land. The technique itself sounds simple, but the execution was genius. The Nazca desert floor is covered by a layer of reddish-brown, iron oxide-coated pebbles. It's like a dark, sun-baked crust, but just a few inches beneath this layer lies a completely different world. Much lighter, yellowish-gray soil. The Nazca people discovered that by simply removing the dark top layer of pebbles, they could create a stunning visual contrast. This contrast is what makes the geoglyphs visible. They weren't digging deep trenches. They were essentially drawing on the desert floor by clearing away the surface stones and piling them neatly along the edges of their designs. This created a shallow depression, usually only 4 to 6 inches deep, but the stark color difference made the lines pop. Imagine the scene. Hundreds of people working together under the hot desert sun, meticulously clearing stones by hand. The displaced pebbles, piled along the borders, further accentuated the lines, giving them a subtle, raised edge effect. This also had a practical benefit. The piled stones helped protect the lines from being eroded by the wind. The climate in the Nazca region is one of the driest on Earth, with very little rain and wind. This incredibly stable environment has acted as a natural preservative, allowing these fragile creations to survive for nearly 2,000 years. It's a perfect storm of clever engineering and a unique environment. So, they knew how to make the lines, but how did they achieve such incredible precision and scale? This is where the real magic happens. We're talking about straight lines that run 4 miles, perfect geometric shapes like trapezoid and spirals, and stylized figures of animals like hummingbirds, spiders, and monkeys, some stretching hundreds of feet across, all created without the benefit of an aerial view. How on earth did they do it? The answer lies in simple, yet brilliant, geometry and planning. Archaeologists believe the Nazca used basic survey techniques to create those astonishingly long, straight lines. They likely used pairs of wooden stakes. One person would stand at a starting point with a stake, and another would walk out as far as they could be seen and plant a second stake. By aligning a third stake with the first two, they could extend a straight line, stake by stake, across vast distances with remarkable accuracy. It's a low-tech method that's surprisingly effective. You could try it in a large field yourself and see just how straight you can make a line. For the more complex figures, like the animals and spirals, the process was a bit more involved. It's thought that the Nazca first created small-scale models or grid-like drawings, perhaps on textiles or pottery, which have been found in the region. These small designs would have served as blueprints. They would then scale up the design onto the desert floor using a grid system of ropes and stakes. By breaking down a large, complex image into a grid of smaller, manageable squares, they could transfer the design piece by piece, ensuring all the proportions remained correct. Think of it like a giant game of connect the dots. They would plot out key points of the design with stakes, and then connect these points with ropes to guide the workers who were clearing the stones. 4 curved lines, like those in the famous monkey's tail or the hummingbird's beak. A single stake could be used as a pivot point, with a rope tied to it acting like a giant compass to draw perfect arcs. It's a testament to their understanding of mathematics and geometry. They didn't need advanced technology. They had a deep, practical knowledge of how shapes and lines work, and they applied it on a scale that boggles the modern mind. What's perhaps most astounding is the consistency of the lines. The width of a single line often remains constant over its entire length, whether it's a few hundred feet or several miles long. This suggests a highly organized workforce, with clear instructions and supervisors, ensuring quality control. This wasn't a haphazard project. It was a carefully planned and executed community effort, likely spanning generations. Each person had a role, from the planners and surveyors to the hundreds of laborers clearing the stones. The sheer scale of this undertaking speaks volumes about the Nazca Society. These weren't just doodles in the sand. They were monumental works that required a significant investment of time, resources, and labor. This level of organization implies a stable, structured society with strong leadership capable of mobilizing and directing large groups of people towards a common goal. The creation of the lines was likely a deeply ingrained part of their culture, a ritualistic or ceremonial practice that held immense meaning for the entire community. So, when we look at these incredible images from the sky, we're not just seeing mysterious drawings. We are seeing the result of brilliant low-tech engineering, a profound understanding of geometry, and the collective effort of a whole civilization. The Nazca people may not have seen their creations in their entirety as we do today, but they understood the process and the purpose. They were masters of their landscape, turning the desert itself into a colossal canvas for their culture, beliefs, and artistic expression. It's a powerful reminder that human ingenuity has always found a way to achieve the extraordinary. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the creation of the Nazca Lines. If you found this as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more journeys into the mysteries of the ancient world. Let me know in the comments which geoglyph is your favorite. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey through the mysteries of the ancient world. Today, we're soaring high above the arid plains of southern Peru, to a place where the earth itself has been transformed into a colossal canvas. We're talking, of course, about the Nazca Lines. For our 6th chapter, we're refocusing on the incredible animals of the sky, giant figures etched into the desert floor, visible in their full glory, only from above. Who created them? And more importantly, why? Let's take a closer look. Imagine you're in a small plane, banking over the sun-scorched landscape. Suddenly, you see it, a shape so perfect, so deliberate. It takes your breath away. This is the magic of Nazca. These geoglyphs, created by the ancient Nazca culture between 500 BC and 500 AD, are among archaeology's most enduring enigmas. While there are hundreds of figures, from simple lines to geometric shapes, it's the animal figures that truly capture our imagination. These weren't just random doodles. Each one was rich with symbolic meaning, deeply woven into the spiritual fabric of the Nazca people. Let's start with one of the most famous and intricate designs, the hummingbird. This geoglyph is over 300 feet long, a testament to the incredible skill of its creators. The hummingbird wasn't just a pretty bird to the Nazca. In the Andes, hummingbirds are often associated with life, fertility, and rain. Think about it. These tiny, energetic birds flit from flower to flower, acting as pollinators, ensuring the continuation of plant life. In a desert environment where water is the most precious resource, anything connected to life and abundance would have held immense power. Some researchers believe the hummingbird figure was an appeal to the gods for rain, a prayer etched into the earth to bring life-giving water to their crops. The beak of the Nazca hummingbird points towards the direction of the rising sun during the summer solstice, linking it to astronomical events and the changing of seasons. It's a celestial messenger, a vibrant symbol of hope in a harsh land. Now, let's move from the air to the ground, to a creature that might seem a bit surprising. The spider, measuring about 150 feet. This geoglyph is remarkable for its biological accuracy. It depicts a specific species of spider, known for being venomous and found in the Amazon rainforest, hundreds of miles away. How did the Nazca know about this spider in such detail? It suggests a level of contact and knowledge exchange between the coastal desert people and the inhabitants of the jungle that is truly fascinating. But what did it symbolize? Spiders are often associated with rain and fertility. They are weavers, creating intricate webs, much like the Nazca people wove intricate textiles and, indeed, wove these lines into the desert itself. Could the spider have been a symbol of creation, of the universe being woven into existence? Or perhaps it was a powerful totem, a guardian against harm, its venomous nature representing a protective force. It's a complex figure that hints at a world far more connected than we often imagine. Next, we swing over to the playful and enigmatic monkey. This figure is about 300 feet long and features a distinctive, long, spiraling tail. Like the spider, the monkey isn't native to the Nazca Desert region. It's another creature of the Amazon. This again points to significant travel and trade. The monkey's tail is one of its most debated features. Some scholars see it as a representation of the winding paths people took during ceremonial rituals. Or perhaps it mimics the spiral patterns found in seashells, which were also linked to water and fertility. Monkeys are known for their intelligence and social nature. Could this figure have been a symbol of community, or perhaps a representation of a mythical ancestor? Its energetic and almost whimsical form stands in stark contrast to the stark desert, a splash of jungle life carved into the sand. It's a puzzle within a puzzle, a cheerful character in a vast and silent landscape. From the trees, we now look to the sky again, to the majestic condor. This is one of the largest figures, spanning over 440 feet. The Andean condor is a powerful and sacred animal in South American cultures. It's a scavenger, yes, but it's also seen as the ruler of the upper world, a divine messenger that connects the earthly realm with the heavens. Soaring on thermal currents, it can reach incredible altitudes, seemingly touching the realm of the gods. For the Nazca, the condor was likely a symbol of power, health, and liberty. By etching this mighty bird into the earth, were they trying to invoke its strength and its connection to the divine? Was it a representation of a deity itself, or a prayer for guidance from the heavens? The sheer scale of the condor geoglyph suggests its immense importance. It's a silent guardian, its wings spread wide as if to embrace the entire plain, a timeless link between humanity and the cosmos. Finally, let's dive deep into the desert ocean to find our last creature, the whale. This might be the most surprising of all. A whale in the middle of the desert? This figure, located on a low hill, is a powerful reminder that the Nazca people were not just desert dwellers. They were also a coastal culture. The Pacific Ocean was a vital source of food and a key part of their worldview. Whales are powerful, almost mythical creatures of the deep. They represent the abundance and mystery of the sea. For the Nazca, the whale geoglyph was likely a symbol of maritime power and a plea for a bountiful catch. It was an offering to the gods of the sea, a sign of respect for the immense power of the ocean that lay just over the horizon. Its presence so far inland ties the desert and the sea together, showing how the Nazca worldview encompassed all aspects of their environment. So what's the grand theory that ties all these incredible animals together? Many experts believe the Nazca Lines were part of a vast ritual landscape. The lines themselves often connect the figures, forming pathways. People may have walked along these lines in ceremonial processions, perhaps during specific times of the year, to honor their gods and ask for their blessings. The animals weren't just pictures. They were active participants in these rituals. They were channeled to the gods of the sky, the earth, and the sea. The hummingbird for rain, the spider for creation, the monkey for community, the condor for divine connection, and the whale for the ocean's bounty. Together, they form a complex system of prayer and cosmology, a giant book of faith written on the surface of the planet. As we fly away from the Nazca Plains, the figures slowly merge back into the desert landscape. They're a profound statement of human creativity and faith, a testament to a culture that saw the sacred in the world around them and sought to communicate with the forces of nature in the most spectacular way possible. The animals of the sky and the earth and the sea remain etched not just in the desert, but in our collective imagination, a beautiful and enduring mystery. Thank you so much for joining me on this aerial tour of the Nazca Lines. There's always more to discover, so if you enjoyed this journey, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter. Until next time, keep exploring. Welcome back to our exploration of the world's greatest mysteries. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most baffling enigmas of ancient Peru, the Nazca Lines. Specifically, we're focusing on Chapter 7 of this grand puzzle, the vast and perplexing network of straight lines and geometric shapes etched into the desert floor. Forget the famous animal figures for a moment. These geometric designs are, in many ways, even more mysterious. Imagine standing on the barren, sun-scorched Nazca Plateau. As far as the eye can see, immense, ruler-straight lines cut across the landscape. They crisscross each other, run parallel for miles, and form a seemingly chaotic grid. Some of these lines are incredibly long, stretching for over 10 kilometers, or 6 miles, without deviating from their path by more than a few meters. How could an ancient culture, without the benefit of modern surveying equipment or aerial views, create such astonishingly precise lines on this scale? The sheer logistics are mind-boggling. They had to clear away the dark, rust-colored desert varnish pebbles to reveal the lighter-colored earth beneath, a painstaking process that would have required immense coordination and a very clear purpose. But what was that purpose? That's the question that has stumped researchers for decades. These aren't random doodles. They're intentional, and their precision suggests a deep significance. One of the most popular theories, pioneered by researchers who dedicated her life to studying these lines, is that they formed a massive astronomical calendar. She and others discovered that some of the most prominent lines align perfectly with significant celestial events. For instance, certain lines point directly to the position of the sun on the horizon during the summer and winter cycles. These are the longest and shortest days of the year, crucial markers for an agricultural society. By tracking the sun's movement along these lines, the Nazca people could have precisely predicted the changing of seasons, knowing exactly when to plant their crops and when to harvest. The desert itself would have become a giant, open-air observatory, a tool for survival written on the very face of the earth. And it's not just the solstices. Other lines appear to align with the rising and setting points of important star constellations, like the Pleiades. For many ancient cultures, the appearance of the Pleiades clusters signaled the start of a new agricultural cycle. It's entirely plausible that the Nazca used these lines to track these stellar movements, embedding their agricultural and ceremonial calendar directly into the landscape. This astronomical connection elevates the lines from simple paths to a sophisticated system of timekeeping and cosmic reverence. Think about it. The entire civilization could gather and watch as the sun or a star cluster align perfectly with a line stretching to the horizon, marking a sacred moment in time. Beyond the single lines, we find even more complex figures. Enormous triangles, rectangles, and trapezoids. Some of these geometric shapes are vast, with sides measuring hundreds of meters long. They are so large that you can't truly appreciate their form from the ground. You have to be in the air to see them in their entirety. This has led to all sorts of wild speculation. But let's stick to what we can deduce. These large, open spaces are often found at the convergence of several lines. One compelling idea is that they were ceremonial gathering places. Picture hundreds, perhaps thousands, of people congregating within the borders of a giant trapezoid for important rituals or social events. The lines leading to these shapes could have been processional pathways, guiding participants from different communities to a central, sacred zone. The shapes themselves might have defined the ritual space, a temporary temple under the open sky. Another layer of this theory suggests that the shapes and lines are related to water, the most precious resource in this arid environment. The Nazca were master hydraulic engineers, creating a sophisticated system of underground aqueducts called puquillos to bring water from the Andes. Some researchers, like David Johnson, have proposed that the lines and trapezoids actually map the location of these underground water sources. The trapezoids, he argues, often point toward water sources, and the lines themselves may follow the paths of subterranean faults where water flows. In this view, the Nazca lines are not just a calendar, but a giant map, a ritual map, perhaps to the life-giving water hidden beneath the desert. This would make the lines a tool for both spiritual and physical survival. Perhaps ceremonies performed within the giant trapezoids were prayers or rituals aimed at ensuring a continued supply of water. The complexity doesn't end there. There's another fascinating detail: the alignment of these lines with natural landmarks. Many of the straight lines point directly at prominent mountain peaks on the distant horizon. In Andean cosmology, mountains, known as appas, are considered powerful deities, sources of water and life, and homes of the gods. A line connecting a ceremonial space directly to a sacred mountain would have been a powerful symbolic link, a physical prayer, aimed at a deity. Imagine a shaman or priest standing at one end of a line, looking directly along its path to a holy mountain, channeling the energy and power of the APU for the benefit of their community. This transforms the lines into conduits of spiritual energy, connecting the people not just to the sky, but to the sacred landscape around them. So, when we look at these geometric forms, we're not just seeing lines in the sand. We're seeing a multi-layered system of incredible complexity. They are simultaneously an astronomical calendar, a guide for religious processions, potential maps to hidden water, and direct lines of sight to mountain gods. It's likely not a single one of these theories is correct, but a combination of all of them. The Nazca Lines were probably a deeply integrated part of their society, touching upon every aspect of life, from farming and survival to religion and social structure. They were a way of organizing their world, of writing their beliefs and their knowledge onto the landscape itself, creating a sacred geography that mirrored their cosmology. The sheer scale and precision of these lines and shapes, created without modern tools, remains one of their most profound mysteries. It speaks to a society with a deep understanding of geometry, engineering, and astronomy, and a remarkable ability to organize large-scale labor projects over generations. They were creating something not for themselves to see from the ground, but for a purpose that transcended the individual human perspective. Perhaps they were for their gods to see from above, or perhaps their significance was purely conceptual and ritualistic. Whatever their ultimate purpose, the straight lines and geometric figures of Nazca stand as a silent, awe-inspiring testament to the ingenuity and deep spiritual world of this ancient civilization. They challenge our assumptions about what primitive cultures were capable of and invite us to look deeper into the connection between humanity, the landscape, and the cosmos. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the desert. If you're fascinated by these ancient mysteries, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We have so much more to uncover. See you next time. Have you ever looked at the Nazca Lines from high above and just wondered why? What drove an ancient civilization to etch these colossal figures into the desert floor? Figures so large, they can only be truly appreciated from the sky. The answer, many researchers believe, lies not in messages to aliens, but in a desperate plea to the gods for the most precious resource of all: water. Welcome back to our series exploring the mysteries of the Nazca. Today, we're diving deep into Chapter 8, Rituals and the Gods of Water. To understand the lines, we first have to understand the land. The Nazca region is one of the driest places on Earth. Rain is incredibly scarce. For the Nazca people, survival wasn't just about farming. It was about mastering a harsh environment where water was everything. Their ingenuity was remarkable. Instead of relying on unpredictable rainfall, they developed an advanced system of underground aqueducts called puc. These subterranean canals tapped into underground aquifers, channeling water across the desert to their settlements and fields. This system was the lifeline of their society, a testament to their incredible engineering skills. But even with this technology, their existence was precarious. A prolonged drought, a change in the water table, any disruption could mean disaster. This constant life-or-death dependence on water shaped their entire worldview. It permeated their culture, their art, and most importantly, their religion. And this is where the lines come in. One of the most compelling theories, pioneered by archaeologists like Johann Rhein, is that the Nazca Lines were part of massive, open-air religious ceremonies. They weren't just art, they were sacred pathways, ritual spaces designed to connect with the divine. Imagine hundreds of people walking in procession along these immense lines. They follow the path of a giant spider, a monkey, or a hummingbird, chanting, praying, and making offerings. What were they praying for? Water. The geoglyphs, in this view, are offerings to the gods who controlled the sky and the earth. Gods who could bring rain, or who could ensure the underground pukios continued to flow. Many of the animal figures depicted are strongly associated with water and fertility in Andean mythology. Take the hummingbird, for example. In many indigenous cultures, hummingbirds are seen as harbingers of rain, appearing just before the wet season. The spider is another fascinating one. Certain spider species are also linked to rain and are believed to be able to predict it. And what about the massive whale or the fish-like figures? These are direct representations of the ocean, the ultimate source of all water. By etching these powerful symbols into the desert floor, the Nazca may have been trying to capture their essence, to call upon their power. It was a form of sympathetic magic. By drawing a creature linked to water, you invite water into your world. It's a monumental act of faith, written on the land itself. Furthermore, some of the long, straight lines seem to point directly to sources of water, like the points where underground rivers emerge or where pukios are located. Other lines align with the positions of the sun during solstice, which would have been crucial for timing agricultural and ritual cycles. The lines, the sun, and the water sources were all interconnected in a complex sacred calendar. Archaeological evidence supports this ritual theory. Pottery shards, often from ceremonial vessels, have been found at the intersections of lines. Small altars or platforms have also been discovered at the ends of some pathways, suggesting places where offerings were made or where priests conducted rituals. These weren't just random drawings. They were active, vibrant parts of Nazca's spiritual life. The entire Nazca Plateau could be seen as a giant, sacred template. Each line and figure was a prayer, a ritual pathway, a connection to the gods who held the power of life and death in their hands. When the Nazca people walked these lines, they weren't just walking on dirt. They were walking a path between the human world and the divine, performing a ritual to ensure the survival of their people. They were asking the mountain gods, the sky gods, and the earth gods for the gift of water. Think about the sheer scale of this endeavor. Generations of people working together, moving millions of stones, all driven by a shared belief and a common need. It shows how central water was to their existence. The lines are a powerful, silent testament to their relationship with their environment and their gods. They are a story of survival, of faith, and of a people who did everything they could to summon the rains and make the desert bloom. The Nazca Lines are more than just an ancient mystery. They are a profound expression of human hope in the face of scarcity. They remind us that for many cultures, throughout history, the line between the physical and the spiritual was not a line at all, but a deeply interwoven reality. What do you think of this theory? Does it solve the puzzle for you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. In our next chapter, we'll explore some of the more astronomical interpretations and see how the stars might fit into this incredible story. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss it. Have you ever heard of the Nazca Lines? These giant geoglyphs, etched into the desert floor of southern Peru, are one of the world's greatest archaeological mysteries. Spanning hundreds of square miles, these massive drawings of animals, plants, and geometric shapes are so vast they can only be fully appreciated from the sky. For decades, scientists and enthusiasts have debated their purpose. Were they messages to the gods, ancient runways for extraterrestrial visitors, or something else entirely? Today, we're diving into one of the most compelling and scientifically grounded theories, championed by a woman who dedicated her life to unlocking their secrets. Her name was Maria Reich, a German mathematician and archaeologist who became known as the Lady of the Lines. Maria Reich first arrived in Peru in the 1930s and was immediately captivated by the enigmatic figures in the desert. She wasn't the first to study them, but she would become their most passionate and dedicated guardian. For over 50 years, she lived in the harsh desert environment, often with very few resources, meticulously mapping, measuring, and cleaning the lines. She walked thousands of miles, tracing the ancient paths with a broom, a ladder, and a sextant, fighting to protect them from damage and neglect. Her dedication was legendary. She lived in a small, rustic hut near the lines, braving the scorching sun, biting winds, and solitude. The local people, who at first were suspicious of this foreign woman, eventually came to respect and admire her, giving her the affectionate nickname the woman who sweeps the desert. But Maria wasn't just cleaning. She was deciphering a complex, ancient code. As a mathematician and astronomer, Maria Reich brought a unique perspective to the Nazca Lines. She noticed that many of the long, straight lines seemed to point to significant astronomical positions on the horizon. This led her to develop what is now known as the Great Astronomical Theory. She proposed that the Nazca Lines were not just art, but a colossal astronomical calendar. According to Reich, The Nazca people used these lines to track the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. She believed that specific lines aligned with the points on the horizon where the sun would rise or set during important celestial events, like the summer and winter solstices. These solstices would have been crucial for an agricultural society, marking the changing of seasons and signaling the best times for planting and harvesting. Let's break down how this would work. Imagine you're a Nazca farmer 2,000 years ago. Knowing precisely when the rainy season will start is a matter of life and death. By observing the sun's position against a specific line on the desert floor, you could predict the solstice with incredible accuracy. The entire desert, in this view, becomes a giant, open-air observatory and a functional calendar. Maria Reich's research was incredibly detailed. She painstakingly measured the azimuths, directional bearings of hundreds of lines. For example, she found lines that pointed directly to the rising point of the Pleiades star cluster, a constellation whose appearance was significant to many ancient cultures in the southern hemisphere, often heralding the start of the agricultural year. The animal figures, or zoomorphs, also played a role in her theory. She suggested that some of these figures, like the famous spider and monkey, could represent constellations. The Nazca people might have projected their star patterns onto the ground, creating a celestial map on a grand scale. The spider, for instance, has been linked to the constellation Orion, and its orientation may have had astronomical or seasonal significance. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence for her theory involves the figure of the monkey. This geoglyph has a long, spiraling tail. Maria Reich noted that if you followed the direction of the lines associated with the monkey, they aligned with astronomical markers. She also theorized that the spiral shapes found throughout the Nazca landscape could represent the winding paths of celestial bodies, or even water, a precious resource in the arid desert. However, the astronomical theory is not without its challenges. Critics point out that with so many lines crisscrossing the desert, some are bound to align with astronomical phenomena purely by chance. Statistical analyses have produced mixed results, with some studies supporting Reich's claims and others suggesting the correlations are unstrong enough to be definitive. Furthermore, later research has uncovered other possible functions for the lines. Some archaeologists believe they were ceremonial pathways, walked by ancient people during religious rituals. Evidence of pottery and other offerings found at the intersections of some lines supports this idea. Others suggest the lines are connected to water sources, pointing towards underground aquifers in one of the driest places on Earth. This is known as the water theory, and it posits that the lines were part of a ritual system to call for rain and fertility. It's likely that the Nazca lines served multiple purposes. They could have been astronomical, ritualistic, and related to water all at once. Ancient cultures often integrated science, religion, and daily life in ways that are hard for us to separate today. But regardless of whether her theory explains everything, Maria Reich's contribution is immeasurable. Her tireless work brought the Nazca lines to global attention and was instrumental in their preservation. Without her, these fragile etchings might have been lost forever to erosion, development, and vehicle traffic. She single-handedly campaigned for their protection, often using her own money to pay for guards. In 1994, thanks in large part to her efforts, the Nazca Lines were designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Maria Reich passed away in 1998 and was buried in the desert she loved, not far from the lines she spent her life studying. Her home has been turned into a museum, and a small observatory near Nazca is named in her honor. Her legacy is not just a theory. It's a story of incredible passion, perseverance, and a deep connection to the past. So, the next time you see a picture of the Nazca hummingbird or spider, think of Maria Reich. Think of the woman with her broom and ladder under the vast desert sky, trying to read a message written in the earth to millennia ago. She believed the Nazca people were not primitive artists, but sophisticated astronomers and engineers who created a monumental book of the stars. While the complete mystery of the lines may never be solved, her work provides a brilliant and inspiring chapter in our quest to understand them. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the mysteries of the past, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you won't miss our next adventure. Let me know in the comments what you think the Nazca lines were for. See you next time. Ever wonder what it would be like to walk on a prayer? To trace a line in the sand that's not just a line, but a sacred journey, a conversation with the cosmos. For centuries, the Nazca Lines of Peru have baffled scientists and sparked the wildest theories. Aliens, ancient astronauts, giant calendars. But what if the answer is something more profound, more human, and written right into the earth we walk on? Today, we're stepping into one of the most compelling theories about these enigmatic Forget runways for spaceships. Imagine these vast, intricate designs, not as pictures to be seen from above, but as pathways to be walked from within. Welcome to the idea of the Nazca Lines as paths of pilgrimage. Let's journey back in time, nearly 2,000 years ago, to the arid coastal plains of southern Peru. The Nazca civilization flourished here, a people deeply connected to their environment, especially to one precious, life-giving resource: water. In one of the driest places on Earth, water was more than just a necessity. It was sacred. Rain, rivers, and the underground aqueducts they ingeniously built were the focus of their spiritual world. Now, picture this. You are a member of the Nazca community. A ceremony is about to begin. It's not a ceremony you simply watch. It's one you participate in with your entire body. You gather with your kin at the start of a massive, perfectly straight line etched into the desert floor. This line, maybe kilometers long, isn't just a random mark. It points towards a significant celestial event, like the rising of a specific star, or more importantly, towards a source of water, a distant mountain peak where rain clouds gather, or the direction from which a river flows. This is the core of the pilgrimage theory, championed by archaeologists who have spent years walking these very lines. They suggest that the act of walking was the ritual itself. It was a form of active prayer, a procession. As you walk, you're not just moving from point A to point B. You're in a meditative state. Your footsteps, a rhythmic chant. The vast, open desert isolates you, focusing your mind and spirit on the purpose of your journey. Think about it. Many cultures have traditions of pilgrimage. The Camino de Santiago inspired the Hajj to Mecca. They walk to the Ganges River. The journey itself is a spiritual transformation. Why would the Nazca be any different? Instead of building grand temples of stone that reached for the sky, they carved their temple into the very fabric of the earth, a sprawling cathedral of lines and shapes. The evidence for this is compelling. Archaeologists have found broken pottery at intersections and endpoints of the lines. These weren't just discarded carelessly. They appear to be ritual offerings, smashed deliberately at key points in the procession, perhaps to mark the end of a prayer or to give thanks. Imagine a large group, maybe an entire clan or village, walking in single file along a line. The leader might carry a sacred object, and at the end of the line, they perform a ritual, leaving an offering to the gods of water and fertility. And it's not just the straight lines. What about the famous figures? The hummingbird, the spider, the monkey. The pilgrimage theory has a place for them too. These aren't just doodles. Many of these figures are drawn with a single, continuous line that never crosses itself. You can walk the entire figure from start to finish without ever lifting your feet or retracing your steps. Try to visualize this. A procession doesn't just walk in a straight line. It could also mean ceremonially tracing the outline of a sacred animal. The hummingbird, a creature associated with life and water in many Andean cultures, becomes a path of prayer. As you walk its form, you embody its spirit. You connect with its symbolic power. The spider, a symbol of rain and fertility. The monkey, with its long, spiraling tail, might represent the winding flow of rivers. Walking these figures wasn't about seeing them from above. It was about experiencing them from the ground, embodying their meaning with every step. This theory also helps explain the sheer scale and precision of the lines. If this was a central part of their religious life, a massive community effort involving generations of people, it makes sense that they would invest so much time and energy. These weren't just art projects. They were essential infrastructure for their spiritual survival. Maintaining the lines, keeping them clear of debris, would have been a continuous act of devotion. Furthermore, consider the layout. Many lines converge on small hills or mounds, which would have served as natural platforms or altars. From these elevated points, a shaman or priest could have overseen the processions. leading the rituals and observing the movements of the people across the vast desert floor. It transforms the pampa into a dynamic, living stage for a religious drama. The lines aren't randomly placed. Researchers have found that many of them align with the position of the sun during the solstices and equinoxes, tying the agricultural calendar to these ritual walks. A procession might take place on the winter solstice, a prayer for the return of the sun and the coming of the rainy season. The act of walking the line becomes a way to participate in the cosmic order, to help ensure the cycles of nature continue. So, when we look at the Nazca Lines, maybe we've been asking the wrong question. It's not what do they mean, but what did they do? They were walked, they were experienced, they were preyed upon. The people of Nazca didn't just look at their sacred symbols, they walked inside of them. The entire desert was their temple, and the lines were the pathways that connected them to their gods, to the cosmos, and to the life-giving force of water. The idea that walking itself could be a prayer is a powerful one. It reframes the Nazca Lines from a static mystery to be solved into a dynamic, living expression of faith. It is a testament to the human need to find meaning and to connect with the world in a physical, tangible way. They didn't just send their prayers up to the heavens. They etched them into the earth and walked them into existence. Next time you see a picture of that giant spider or hummingbird, don't just imagine an alien landing strip. Imagine a line of people walking slowly, rhythmically, their footsteps a silent prayer for rain in a thirsty land. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through ancient history. If you found this perspective fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the world's greatest mysteries. Let me know in the comments what you think were the Nazca Lines pilgrimage paths. See you in the next video. Have you ever looked up at the night sky and felt a sense of wonder? A connection to something much larger than yourself? For many ancient civilizations, the heavens weren't just a canvas of stars. They were the home of the gods, a realm where divinity watched over the mortal world. This brings us to one of the most enigmatic mysteries on Earth. The Nazca Lines, etched into the desert plains of southern Peru. These colossal geoglyphs have baffled researchers for decades. But what if their purpose wasn't meant for us on the ground at all? What if they were created as spiritual messages to the sky? Let's journey back in time, to a world where the boundary between the physical and the spiritual was far more fluid. Ancient societies across the globe, from the Egyptians who built pyramids reaching for the heavens, to the Mayans who constructed observatories to track celestial movements, shared a profound reverence for the sky. It was a bridge, a sacred space connecting life on Earth to the divine. The sun, the moon, the stars. These weren't just astronomical bodies. They were deities, omens, and guides. Rituals, ceremonies, and entire belief systems were built around pleasing these powerful celestial beings. Now, imagine the Nazca people living in this arid, challenging landscape. To them, survival depended on the whims of nature, which they likely attributed to the will of the gods above. So how do you communicate with deities who live in the sky? You create art so massive, so grand, that it can only be fully appreciated from their vantage point. This is the core of the spiritual theory behind the Nazca Lines. These aren't just random drawings. They are prayers, offerings, and sacred symbols carved into the very fabric of the earth, intended for divine eyes only. Consider the figures themselves. The hummingbird, with its ability to hover and fly in all directions, could have symbolized agility and the connection between different worlds. The monkey, a creature not native to the arid region, might have represented fertility in water, brought from the distant, lush Amazon. The spider, a master weaver, could have been a symbol of creation and destiny. Each line, each shape, wasn't just an animal or a geometric pattern. It was a character in a complex, sacred language directed upward. These geoglyphs were a testament to their faith, a monumental effort to capture the attention of the gods who controlled rain, harvests, and life itself. The sheer scale of this undertaking is mind-boggling. We're talking about hundreds of figures, some stretching over 1,000 feet, created with simple tools and remarkable precision. To organize a workforce for such a project, over generations, speaks to a deep, unifying spiritual purpose. It wasn't about creating a landmark for future tourists. It was an act of devotion. The Nazca people likely performed rituals along these lines, walking their paths in ceremonial processions. Picture it. Entire communities moving in unison along the outlines of a giant condor or a whale, their chants and prayers rising with the desert dust, hoping to be seen and heard by the powerful beings watching from above. This idea challenges our modern perspective. We often seek practical, scientific explanations for ancient mysteries. But for the Nazca, the practical and the spiritual were one and the same. Ensuring a good harvest wasn't just about agricultural techniques. It was about maintaining a good relationship with the sky gods. The lines were their most powerful tool for that relationship. They were a form of active worship, a way to participate in the cosmic order. The desert floor became a gigantic altar, a canvas where humanity could speak directly to divinity. Furthermore, this theory aligns with a concept known as axis mundi, or the world axis, a central point connecting the heavens, the earth, and the underworld. For many cultures, specific mountains, trees, or man-made structures served this purpose. For the Nazca, perhaps the entire plain, decorated with these divine messages, was their axis mundi. The lines weren't just on the earth. They were part of a system that anchored their world to the cosmos, creating a stable and meaningful existence in a harsh environment. The very act of creating and maintaining these lines would have reinforced their social bonds and their shared cosmology, ensuring their culture's continuity. It's also possible that the lines were related to shamanism. Shamans, believed to travel between the physical and spirit worlds, might have used these pathways in their trance-like journeys. While under the influence of hallucinogenic plants, the shaman might fly over the landscape, seeing the world as the gods do. In T-state, the lines would become a map of the spiritual realm, a guide for their celestial travels to intercede on behalf of their community. The figures of animals, many of which held powerful symbolic meaning, would act as spirit guides or allies in this otherworldly dimension. So, when we look at the Nazca Lines, we're not just seeing ancient art. We're witnessing a profound expression of human spirituality. We're seeing a culture that poured its heart, soul, and immense effort into communicating with the forces they believed governed their lives. The lines are a silent, sprawling sermon written in the language of the earth, directed at the sky. They remind us that for much of human history, the heavens were not an empty void to be explored by science, but a living conscious presence to be revered and engaged with. They are a timeless message, not necessarily for extraterrestrials, but for the gods of their own making. A beautiful and enduring testament to the power of faith. What do you think? Were these lines a celestial prayer book? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more journeys into the mysteries of our past. Have you ever wondered how an ancient civilization could thrive in one of the driest places on Earth? Today, we're returning to the arid plains of southern Peru to uncover the secrets of the Nazca people and their incredible feats of engineering. This isn't just a story about survival. It's a tale of innovation that has stood the test of time for over 1,500 years. The Nazca civilization flourished between 100 BCE and 800 CE, right in the middle of a desert that sees less than an inch of rainfall a year. So, how did they farm? How did they build a society? The answer lies beneath the ground. They developed a sophisticated system of underground aqueducts, known as puquios. These weren't just simple ditches. They were marvels of hydraulic engineering that are still in use today. Imagine this: a network of subterranean canals, some stretching for miles, tapping into underground water tables fed by the distant Andes Mountains. This system brought life-giving water to the desert, allowing the Nazca to cultivate crops like cotton, beans, and potatoes. But the most iconic feature of these puquios is what we see on the surface: strange, spiraling funnels descending into the earth. These are called ojos, or eyes. These spiral openings are pure genius. They weren't just for decoration. They served a crucial purpose. First, they provided access for maintenance. People could walk down these spirals to clean out the channels and ensure the water flowed freely. Second, and perhaps more brilliantly, they were designed to harness the wind. As wind blew across the desert and into the hoyos, it would push water through the underground canals. The spiral shape created a vortex effect, essentially acting as a natural water pump. Think about that for a second. The Nazca were using wind power to manage their water supply centuries before modern wind turbines were even a dream. Let's take a closer look at how they built them. The Nazca engineers would first locate an underground water source. Then, they would dig a series of vertical shafts, or hoyos, down to the water table. After that, they would tunnel horizontally, connecting these shafts to create a gently sloping canal that carried the water from its source to their fields and settlements. The walls of these tunnels were often lined with river stones to prevent collapse, a testament to their meticulous construction methods. Over 30 of these puquios are still functioning in the Nazca region, providing water for local farmers. It's a living legacy of ancient wisdom. But the story of Nazca water doesn't end underground. It's impossible to talk about the Nazca without mentioning their most famous creation, the Nazca Lines. These are massive geoglyphs, etched into the desert floor, depicting animals, plants, and geometric shapes. For decades, researchers have debated their purpose. Were they astronomical calendars, extraterrestrial landing strips? The answer might be much closer to home, and it connects directly back to water. Many prominent archaeologists now believe the Nazca Lines were deeply connected to rituals for water and fertility. Let's consider the evidence. Some of the most common figures are animals associated with water, like hummingbirds, spiders, and monkey screechers, often linked to rain and fertility in Andean cultures. The hummingbird, for example, signals the coming of the rainy season in the mountains, which is the ultimate source of the Nazca's underground water. Furthermore, many of the straight lines point directly towards water sources, or towards the points on the horizon where the sun rises or sets during important times of the agricultural year, like the solstices. It's proposed that the Nazca people would walk these lines in ceremonial processions, praying for water. The geoglyphs weren't made to be seen from the sky. They were made to be experienced from the ground, as part of a sacred landscape. Each line, each figure, was a prayer etched into the earth, a plea to the gods to keep the precious water flowing through their puquio. Think about the sheer scale of this. You have a society that built an advanced underground irrigation system and, right alongside it, created the largest work of art on the planet, all centered around the worship of water. The puquios were the practical solution to their water problem, the engineering that sustained their bodies. The Nazca Lines were the spiritual solution, the art and ritual that sustained their souls and their connection to the divine forces they believed controlled their world. It shows a profound understanding of their environment. They knew where the water was, eat fluid, and how to harness it, but they also knew they were dependent on it, and that reverence and respect were just as important as engineering. The two systems, the physical aqueducts and the spiritual geoglyphs, worked in tandem. One provided water, the other provided faith. This connection between the geoglyphs and water worship offers a much more compelling explanation than many of the more sensational theories. It grounds the Nazca Lines in the reality of the people who made them, their daily struggles, their beliefs, and their absolute dependence on the scarce resources of the desert. The lines weren't for aliens. They were for the Nazca themselves, a monumental expression of their relationship with the natural and supernatural worlds. So, the next time you see a picture of the Nazca Lines, don't just see a mysterious drawing in the sand. See a prayer for rain. And when you hear about the puquios, don't just think of old canals. Think of a civilization that mastered its environment with an ingenuity that continues to inspire us today. The Nazca left us a powerful lesson, that survival and even prosperity in the harshest of environments is possible through a combination of brilliant engineering and a deep spiritual respect for the world around us. Their legacy isn't just etched in the desert, it's flowing beneath it, still giving life after all these centuries. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the past. If you found this fascinating, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories about the incredible ingenuity of ancient civilizations. Let me know in the comments what you think about the connection between the Nazca Lines and water. See you next time. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're journeying back in time to the arid coastal plains of southern Peru, a land that holds some of archaeology's most captivating mysteries. We've all heard of the Nazca Lines, those gigantic geoglyphs etched into the desert floor, visible in their full glory only from the sky. But what if I told you the story of these incredible creations didn't begin with the Nazca people? What if their inspiration came from an even older, equally fascinating culture? Today, we're unraveling the Paracas connection. Before the Nazca civilization rose to prominence around 100 BC, the Paracas culture flourished in the same region, from roughly 800 BCE to 100 BCE. The name Paracas itself means sand falling like rain, a fitting description for the windswept peninsula where their legacy was first unearthed. While the Nazca are famous for their lines, the Paracas were masters of another craft. Textiles. Their woven fabrics are considered some of the finest ever produced in the ancient world. These aren't just pieces of cloth. They are intricate tapestries of life, death, and mythology. Using vibrant colors derived from natural dyes, Paracas weavers created complex designs featuring shamanic figures, mythical creatures, and geometric patterns. These textiles were more than just clothing or decoration. They were sacred items, used to wrap the dead in elaborate funerary bundles, preserving not just bodies, but also beliefs. The level of detail is staggering. We see figures with serpent-like appendages, flying shamans, and trophy heads, all themes that tell us about their worldview and ritual practices. But the Paracas people didn't just weave their stories into cloth, they also etched them into the earth. Long before the first Nazca spiral was drawn, the Paracas were creating their own on the hillsides of the Palpa Valley, which lies just north of the Nazca Plateau, we find earlier, simpler forms of land art. Unlike the Nazca Lines, which are often best seen from high above, many Paracas geoglyphs were designed to be seen from the valleys below. They often depict human-like figures, sometimes called anthropomorphic figures, as well as animals like felines and birds. These figures are not drawn with a single continuous line like many Nazca designs. Instead, they were created by scraping away the dark surface rock to reveal the lighter soil underneath, creating a filled-in figure, almost like a silhouette. One of the most famous examples is the Paracas candelabra, a massive geoglyph carved into a hillside overlooking the Pisco Bay. While its exact age and purpose are debated, its style is distinctly different from the classic Nazca figures. It stands as a monumental testament to the Paracas people's ambition to mark their landscape in a powerful, lasting way. So, the tradition of creating large-scale art on the desert floor didn't just appear out of nowhere with the Nazca. The foundation was already laid. As the Paracas culture began to decline, the Nazca culture started to emerge in the same geographical area. This wasn't a hostile takeover or a sudden replacement. Archaeologists believe it was a gradual transition, a cultural evolution. The Nazca people were the inheritors of Paracas knowledge. They lived in the same environment, faced the same challenges, and likely shared a common ancestral heritage. This continuity is key to understanding the Nazca Lines. Let's look at the evidence for this cultural handover. First, the iconography. Many of the motifs found in Nazca art, whether on their pottery or in the geoglyphs, have clear precedents in Paracas' textiles. The ocula being a mythical figure with large, staring eyes, is a prominent feature in both cultures' art. We see shamanic figures transforming into animals, trophy heads, and a fascination with killer whales, birds, and monkeys. The Paracas wove these images into their funeral shrouds, and the Nazca painted them on their ceramics and carved them into the earth. It's like a conversation happening across generations, with the same symbolic language being used in different mediums. The Nazca took the visual library of the Paracas and expanded upon it, adapting it to their own ceremonial needs. Now, let's talk about the geoglyphs themselves. The earliest Nazca lines, found in the Palpa Valley, look a lot like the Paracas figures. They are often figurative, depicting animals in human-like forms, and are situated on slopes. But as the Nazca culture developed, their style evolved. They moved on to the vast, flat expanse of the Nazca Plateau, which offered a much larger canvas. Here, their technique shifted. Instead of scraping entire figures, they began creating the famous linear designs, removing a shallow layer of dark desert pavement to create a single, continuous line of lighter soil. This technique allowed for much larger and more complex creations. The geoglyphs became less about single figures and more about sprawling geometric shapes. Trapezoids, spirals, and long, straight lines run for miles. Why this shift? One theory is that it was linked to a change in ritual practice. The Paracas geoglyphs, visible from below, might have been for an audience watching from the valley floor. The Nazca Lines, on the other hand, are often impossible to comprehend from the ground. This has led researchers to believe they were not meant to be seen as a picture, but rather to be walked as ceremonial pathways. Imagine entire communities gathering on the Pampa, walking these sacred lines in a procession, perhaps as part of a ritual to summon water in one of the driest places on Earth. The geometric shapes could have been ceremonial spaces, while the long lines might have pointed to water sources or celestial bodies. The cultural transmission wasn't just about art. It was about a shared understanding of the sacred landscape. The Paracas people identified certain hills and spaces as holy, and the Nazca continued this tradition, sanctifying the entire desert floor. They inherited the idea of communicating with their gods by altering the very land they lived on. The Nazca simply took this concept and scaled it up to an unprecedented, monumental level. The technology, the spiritual concepts, and the artistic symbols all passed from the Paracas to the Nazca. When we look at the Nazca Lines, we are not just seeing the work of one culture. We are seeing the culmination of 1,000 years of artistic and religious development in the Peruvian desert. The Paracas people were the innovators. They created the first desert geoglyphs and developed the rich symbolic vocabulary that would define the region for centuries. The Nazca were the inheritors and perfecters of this tradition. They took the seeds of knowledge planted by the Paracas and grew them into a forest of symbols that still baffles and amazes us today. The Nazca Lines are a spectacular chapter in human history, but to truly understand them, we must read the chapter that came before. The Paracas connection shows us that culture is a river, not a series of ponds. Ideas flow, evolve, and transform over time. The legacy of the Paracas is not just found in their stunning textiles, but it is written across the desert, hidden in plain sight within the lines of their descendants. It's a powerful reminder that no great achievement happens in a vacuum. It is always built upon the foundations laid by those who came before. What do you think about this connection? Does it change the way you see the Nazca Lines? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into ancient history, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more explorations into the mysteries of our past. Thanks for watching. Have you ever wondered how something so delicate, so exposed, could last for thousands of years? We've journeyed through the mysteries of the Nazca Lines, from their creation to their possible meanings. But now, we arrive at perhaps the most incredible part of their story, their survival. This is the tale of preservation through silence, where time itself becomes the ultimate guardian. The Nazca Lines are not carved deep into the earth. They are geoglyphs, created by removing the reddish-brown iron oxide-coated pebbles that cover the surface of the Nazca Desert. This simple act reveals the lighter-colored, sandy soil underneath. We're talking about a trench that's only about 4 to 6 inches deep. If you were standing right next to one, you might not even realize it's part of a giant hummingbird or a sprawling monkey. They're incredibly fragile. So how, then, have these shallow lines endured for over 1,500 years, exposed to the elements? The answer lies in a remarkable conspiracy of nature, a perfect storm of climate and geology. The Nazca Desert is one of the driest places on Earth. It sits in the rain shadow of the Andes Mountains to the east and is chilled by the cold Humboldt Current from the west. This combination means there's almost no rain. We're talking about an average of just 20 minutes of rainfall per year. Without water, there's no erosion to wash the lines away. The soil isn't being churned by moisture or carried off in streams. It just stays put. But what about wind? Surely, over a millennium and a half, the winds would have blown sand and dust back into the shallow trenches, erasing them from view. This is where the second piece of the puzzle comes in. While the region can be windy, the hot desert sun heats the ground, creating a cushion of hot air near the surface. This layer of air acts like a protective shield, deflecting the stronger winds that blow just a few feet above. The very heat that makes the desert so inhospitable also helps to keep the lines clean and visible. It's a delicate, natural balance that has worked in Nazca's favor for centuries. The final, and perhaps most crucial factor in their preservation has been isolation. For most of their existence, the Nazca Lines were known only to the local people. The plateau is remote, arid, and difficult to access. There were no major settlements built on top of them, no highways crisscrossing the designs, no herds of animals trampling the figures into oblivion. The sheer emptiness of the desert was their fortress. For centuries, the lines lay undisturbed, their silence broken only by the whisper of the wind that couldn't touch them. In time has been the Nazca Lines' greatest protector. Usually, we think of time as a destructive force, the great eraser that wears down mountains, crumbles empires, and fades memories. But here, in this unique corner of the world, time has worked differently. The same conditions that existed 2,000 years ago persist today. The dryness, the wind patterns, the isolation, they have been constant. Time hasn't been an agent of change. It has been an agent of stillness. It has frozen a moment, preserving the gestures of an ancient people as if they were made just yesterday. This preservation is a gift. It allows us to connect with a culture that has long since vanished. We can look at these lines and know that we are seeing them almost exactly as their creators intended. But this gift is also a profound responsibility. In the modern era, the silence has been broken. The very fame that brought the Nazca Lines to the world's attention now poses the greatest threat to their existence. The Pan-American Highway, for instance, cuts directly through the figure of the lizard, slicing it in two. The increase in tourism, while economically beneficial, brings with it the risk of damage from vehicles and footprints. In 2014, a Greenpeace publicity stunt left deep tracks near the hummingbird figure, a stark reminder of how easily these ancient relics can be scarred. Climate change is another looming threat. Shifting weather patterns could bring more rain and wind to the region, disrupting the delicate climatic balance that has protected the lines for so long. The isolation that was once their greatest shield is gone. Now, their survival depends on us. It depends on careful conservation, on responsible tourism, and on a global commitment to protecting our shared heritage. The lines are a testament to the ingenuity of the Nazca people and the incredible preservative power of the natural world. They are a library of ancient beliefs written on the pages of the earth. Reflecting on their journey through time, we see a powerful lesson. The Nazca Lines teach us that some of the greatest treasures are not locked away in vaults, but are hidden in plain sight. Protected by the very forces of nature we often take for granted, they remind us that the past is not always a distant, inaccessible country. Sometimes it's right beneath our feet, waiting silently for us to look down and listen to the stories it has to tell. The Nazca Lines have survived for 1,500 years in a silent pact with the desert. The question now is whether they will survive our noisy, modern world. It is our duty to ensure that the answer is yes, so that future generations can continue to marvel at these enigmatic masterpieces. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey through the mysteries of Nazca. If you've been fascinated by this story, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the world's greatest wonders. What do you think is the most amazing part of their survival story? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, keep exploring. Have you ever tried to draw a perfectly straight line, maybe 100 feet long, across an open field? It's harder than it sounds, right? Now, imagine drawing a hummingbird, a monkey, or a spider. But each one is the size of a skyscraper, and you have to do it with perfect geometric precision, without ever seeing your work from above. This isn't a modern-day challenge. It's exactly what the Nazca people accomplished over 2,000 years ago in the deserts of Peru. Welcome back to our series Where Today, where we're tackling one of the greatest archaeological puzzles, the incredible scale and precision of the Nazca Lines. How did they do it? The sheer size of these geoglyphs is mind-boggling. Some of the straight lines run uninterrupted for miles, perfectly straight, over hills and valleys. The animal figures, like the famous condor with its 440-foot wingspan, are so enormous that they can only be truly appreciated from the air. This has led to all sorts of wild theories over the years, from hot air balloons to extraterrestrial assistance. But the truth, as uncovered by archaeologists and researchers, is arguably even more impressive. It's a story of human ingenuity, sophisticated knowledge, and meticulous planning. The secret doesn't lie in alien technology, but in simply yet powerful tools, wooden stakes, long ropes, and a profound understanding of geometry. It's a method that, in principle, isn't all that different from how modern surveyors work, just with more rudimentary materials. Let's break it down. The first step for the Nazca artists was to create a small-scale model or design. Think of it as a blueprint. This could have been drawn on a small, manageable plot of land, or perhaps on textiles or pottery, which we know the Nazca were experts at creating. This initial design would have all the proportions and shapes figured out before the real, large-scale work began. Once the blueprint was finalized, the real magic of scaling up would begin. To create those impossibly straight lines, they would use a simple triangulation method. Imagine two stakes hammered into the ground a certain distance apart. By stretching a rope taut between them, you get a straight line. To extend it, you'd place a third stake in line with the first two, siding along the rope. By repeating this process over and over, stake by stake, you could create a line that stretches for miles, maintaining its direction with remarkable accuracy. This technique explains the long, straight trapezoids and pathways that crisscross the desert. But what about the complex curves of the animal figures? This is where their geometric genius truly shines. To create a perfect arc or circle, all you need is a central stake to act as a pivot and a rope of a fixed length. By walking around the central stake while keeping the rope taut, you can trace a perfect circle on the ground. For more complex curves, like the spiral tail of the monkey or the legs of the spider, they would likely use a combination of different arcs. They would establish multiple anchor points, or focal points, and swing ropes of varying lengths from these points to create the intricate, flowing lines we see today. It was like connecting the dots on a colossal scale, where each dot was a carefully placed wooden stake. Archaeologists have found the physical evidence to back this up. At the ends of many lines, and at key points along the curves of the figures, they've discovered the remains of these wooden stakes. Radiocarbon dating of these stakes has helped to place the construction of the lines between 500 BC and 500 AD. They are the silent witnesses to the incredible process, the actual tools left behind by the ancient engineers. It's like finding the original scaffolding of a cathedral. So, how did they maintain the proportions from their small blueprint to the giant final product? This likely involved a grid system. By overlaying a grid on their small design, they could transfer the drawing, square by square, to a much larger grid laid out on the desert floor. Each square of the small grid would correspond to a much larger square marked out with stakes and ropes. This allowed them to scale up the design with mathematical precision, ensuring the final hummingbird or spider looked just like their original, small-scale drawing, just thousands of times bigger. This wasn't just art. It was a monumental feat of engineering and project management. It would have required a large, organized workforce. Teams of people would be needed to clear the dark desert pavement of its reddish-brown rocks, exposing the lighter-colored earth beneath. This is how the lines were drawn. Other teams would be responsible for the surveying, placing the stakes, and managing the ropes. And overseeing it all would be the master planners, the architects and mathematicians who held the entire design in their minds and directed the operation. The level of mathematical sophistication is what's truly astounding. Without written language as we know it, they were performing complex geometric calculations. They understood principles of scale, proportion, and surveying that wouldn't be formally documented in Europe for centuries. The Nazca Lines aren't just mysterious drawings. They are a testament to an advanced understanding of abstract mathematical concepts. They are, in essence, the largest geometry textbook in the world, written on the surface of the earth. This method, while simple in its component stakes and ropes, required incredible planning, coordination, and a deep, intuitive grasp of geometry. It demonstrates that you don't need advanced technology to achieve amazing results. The Nazca proved that the most powerful tool has always been the human mind. Their ability to translate a small, handheld design into a landscape-sized masterpiece without ever seeing it from above is one of the most awe-inspiring accomplishments of the ancient world. So, the next time you see a picture of the Nazca Lines, don't just see a mystery. See the evidence of a highly organized, intelligent, and mathematically savvy culture. See the hard work of hundreds of people, toiling under the desert sun, using stakes and ropes to create something that would endure for millennia and mystify the world. The precision wasn't magic. It was math. It wasn't aliens. It was human ingenuity at its finest. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the howdunit of the Nazca Lines. It's a story that reminds us not to underestimate the capabilities of ancient peoples. If you found this as fascinating as I do, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more journeys into the past. Let me know in the comments which ancient mystery you'd like us to explore next. Until then, keep asking questions. Hey everyone, welcome back to our deep dive into the mysteries of the Nazca Lines. In our last chapter, we explored the fascinating theories about their purpose, from astronomical calendars to sacred pathways. But today, we're jumping forward in time into Chapter 16. The arrival of modern science. This is where the story gets a high-tech upgrade, completely changing how we see these ancient wonders. For decades, the primary way to study the Nazca Lines was from the air, in small planes, or by painstakingly walking the desert, a method that always carried the risk of damaging the very figures being studied. The fragile desert floor, preserved for centuries, is incredibly susceptible to disturbance. Every footprint can leave a mark that lasts 4 years. This presented a huge challenge for archaeologists. How do you study something so delicate without inadvertently harming it? The answer, it turns out, was waiting in the stars and in the silicon chips of our modern world. The game changer was the advent of satellite imagery. Suddenly, archaeologists weren't limited to what they could see from a low-flying plane. High-resolution satellites, orbiting hundreds of miles above the Earth, began capturing images of the Nazca Plateau with breathtaking clarity. This gave researchers a god's-eye view, allowing them to see the vast network of lines and figures in their entirety, all at once. They could analyze the relationships between different geoglyphs, trace long, straight lines 4 miles across the landscape, and spot potential new figures without ever setting foot on the ground. It was like having a permanent, all-seeing eye in the sky. This non-invasive approach was a revolution. It allowed for macro-level analysis that was previously impossible, revealing patterns and connections that were invisible from the ground or even from a plane. The sheer scale of the Nazca works became more apparent than ever before, but satellites were just the beginning. The next wave of technology brought the exploration back down to Earth, or at least a few hundred feet above it, with the arrival of drones. Drones, or unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, offered the perfect middle ground. They could fly much lower than planes, capturing ultra-high-resolution images with incredible detail. They were also more agile and costly. A team of researchers could deploy a drone to systematically map a specific area, flying pre-programmed routes to ensure complete coverage. This process, known as photogrammetry, involves taking hundreds or even thousands of overlapping photos. These photos are then stitched together using specialized software to create a single, massive, and incredibly detailed 3D model of the landscape. This wasn't just a flat picture. It was a virtual recreation of the desert floor. Researchers could zoom in, tilt, and rotate the model, examining the faintest of lines from every possible angle. Using this drone mapping technique, scientists started finding things no one had ever seen before. In recent years, Japanese researchers from Yamagata University have used drones to identify over 140 new geoglyphs. Many of these newly discovered figures are smaller and more subtle than the famous ones like the hummingbird or the spider. They often depict animals like snakes, birds, and even humanoid figures, some of which are only a few meters long. These discoveries were hiding in plain sight, their faint outlines eroded by time, making them nearly invisible to the naked eye from a plane. But the drones' low altitude, high resolution perspective brought them back to life. It's a thrilling reminder that even after a century of study, the Nazca Desert still has secrets to reveal, and we're just beginning to scratch the surface. And that brings us to the most powerful tool in the modern archaeologists' toolkit. LIDAR. LIDAR stands for light detection and ranging. Think of it like radar, but instead of using radio waves, it uses pulses of laser light. A LIDAR scanner, mounted on a plane or a drone, shoots out millions of laser pulses per second. These pulses bounce off the ground and back to the sensor. By measuring the exact time it takes for each pulse to return, the system can create an astonishingly accurate 3D map of the terrain. And here's the magic part. LiDAR can see through vegetation. The laser pulses can penetrate the gaps in tree canopies or brush, allowing the system to map the true ground surface underneath. While the Nazca Desert is mostly barren, this technology is invaluable for finding lines and figures that have been partially obscured by scrub or are simply too faint to be seen in regular photographs. LiDAR data is so precise that it can detect variations in the ground surface of just a few centimeters. This is crucial for studying the Nazca Lines, which are themselves very shallow depressions. The laser pulses create a point cloud, a massive dataset of millions of 3D coordinates. When this data is processed, it strips away all the visual noise to color of the soil, the shadows, the sparse vegetation, and reveals the pure topography of the land. It's like peeling back the skin of the desert to see the bones beneath. Faint lines, eroded by centuries of wind and weather, suddenly pop out in stark relief. This has led to the confirmation of geoglyphs that were only suspected to exist, and the discovery of entirely new, complex patterns that were completely invisible before. LiDAR gives archaeologists digital superpowers, allowing them to see the unseen. The combined power of satellite imagery, drone mapping, and LiDAR has been transformative. Not only have these tools helped us discover hundreds of new figures, but they've also allowed us to do so responsibly. This is the essence of modern, non-invasive archaeology. Scientists can now gather immense amounts of data without causing the slightest damage to the fragile desert map. They can analyze, measure, and map the entire Nazca landscape from a computer screen thousands of miles away. This protects the site for future generations while accelerating the pace of discovery. What used to take years of field work can now be accomplished in a fraction of the time. This technological revolution has opened up a new chapter in our understanding of the Nazca people. We are learning more about their artistic styles, the evolution of their designs, and the sheer extent of their monumental undertaking. These new discoveries are also challenging old assumptions. Many of the newly found figures, particularly those found by the Yamagata University team, appear to be older than the classic, large-scale geoglyphs. They are often found on slopes and hillsides, and their style is different, suggesting they might come from an earlier phase of Nazca culture, or perhaps even from the preceding Paracas culture. This indicates that the tradition of creating geoglyphs was a long and evolving one, spanning many centuries. It wasn't a single project, but a continuous cultural practice. The ability to precisely map and categorize these different styles and locations, all thanks to modern technology, is helping researchers build a more detailed timeline of who built what and when. The story of the Nazca Lines is becoming richer and more complex with every new dataset we acquire. So, where do we go from here? The age of discovery at Nazca is far from over. In fact, it feels like it's just getting started. As technology continues to improve, who knows what else we will find? Higher resolution satellites, more advanced drones, and even more sensitive LiDAR systems will undoubtedly reveal more secrets hidden in the desert. Artificial intelligence is now being used to analyze the vast amounts of data collected, helping researchers spot patterns and potential figures that a human might miss. It's an exciting time to be studying the past. Modern science hasn't erased the mystery of the Nazca Lines. Instead, it has given us a clearer lens through which to view it. It allows us to ask more specific, more informed questions. The how of their study has been revolutionized, and that's bringing us ever closer to finally understanding the why. Thank you so much for joining me on this high-tech journey. If you're as fascinated by this as I am, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss our next chapter. We'll be piecing all this evidence together to build the most up-to-date picture of the Nazca civilization. See you next time. Welcome back to our series on the Nazca Lines. In our final chapter, we face a sobering reality. The very existence of these ancient masterpieces is under threat. The same forces that shape our modern world, tourism, development, and climate change, are converging on this fragile desert landscape, threatening to erase the lines forever. For centuries, the Nazca Lines were preserved by their sheer isolation and the hyper-arid climate. But today, that's no longer enough. The rise of tourism, while bringing economic benefits, has also brought new dangers. Unregulated flights and careless visitors can cause irreparable damage. Imagine a single footprint left in the wrong place can mar a geoglyph that has survived for 2,000 years. The soil is so delicate that impressions can last for decades, even centuries. A particularly visible threat comes from vehicles. The Pan American Highway, a vital artery of trade, cuts directly through the Nazca Plateau. While the original construction was careful to avoid most major figures, the ever-increasing traffic and the creation of unofficial side roads have taken their toll. In 2014, a well-known incident involving an environmental group left deep vehicle tracks near the famous hummingbird figure, a stark reminder of how easily the desert's surface can be scarred. Then again in 2018, a truck driver intentionally veered off the highway, plowing through several ancient geoglyphs and causing significant damage over a large area. These aren't isolated incidents. They are symptoms of a larger problem of inadequate protection and enforcement in a vast, open territory. The tire tracks are like deep wounds on the landscape, a modern graffiti that defaces an ancient canvas. But perhaps the most insidious threat is one we can't easily see or control: climate change. The Nazca region is one of the driest places on Earth, a key reason the lines have survived. But global weather patterns are shifting. The last few decades have seen an increase in unusual weather events, including stronger El Niño phenomena that bring something previously unheard of to this desert. Heavy rain, and wind erosion are the natural enemies of the Nazca Lines. A single downpour can wash away the shallow topsoil, blurring the delicate contrast between the dark desert pavement and the lighter earth beneath. Over time, increased rainfall could literally wash the geoglyphs away, dissolving them back into the featureless desert from which they were created. This isn't a distant, theoretical problem. Scientists are already observing the subtle fading of some lines due to increased moisture and wind. It's a race against time, a battle to protect this silent legacy from the noise of the 21st century. But this story isn't just about threats. It's also about hope and the tireless efforts of those dedicated to preservation. The Peruvian government, through its Ministry of Culture, is on the front lines of this fight. They have established stricter regulations for tourism, including designated flight pads for aerial viewing and restricted access on the ground. They've erected watchtowers and increased patrols to deter unauthorized entry and prevent further damage from vehicles. The goal is to create a model of sustainable tourism, where people can marvel at the lines without harming them. Internationally, the Nazca Lines have received the highest level of recognition. In 1994, UNESCO designated the site as a World Heritage Site. This status is more than just a title. It's a commitment from the global community to help protect this treasure. UNESCO provides technical expertise, funding, and international oversight for conservation projects. They work alongside Peruvian archaeologists and conservators, using advanced technology like satellite imagery and drones to monitor the vast site for new threats, from illegal mining to encroaching settlements. This data allows for rapid response and helps in planning long-term conservation strategies. These efforts are a powerful collaboration between local authorities and international organizations. They involve everything from painstakingly cleaning and stabilizing damaged areas to educating local communities and tourists about the importance of preservation. It's about instilling a sense of shared ownership and responsibility. The local communities, who are the direct descendants of the Nazca culture, are increasingly involved as guardians of their own heritage. After all, they are the true stewards of this land. The future of the Nazca Lines hangs in the balance. They have survived empires, earthquakes, and the passage of 2 millennia. Their greatest challenge, however, is us. The combination of careless human action and the larger, unintended consequences of our modern industrial world poses an unprecedented threat. But the fight to save them is a testament to the enduring power of human culture and our desire to preserve the wonders of our past for the generations of the future. The work of the Peruvian government, UNESCO, and countless dedicated individuals gives us hope that these enigmatic lines will continue to inspire awe and wonder for centuries to come. They are linked to our shared human story, a story that is worth protecting at all costs. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey through the mysteries of the Nazca Lines. From their creation to their discovery, and now to the fight for their survival, they remain one of humanity's most captivating puzzles. If you enjoyed this series, please like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the world's greatest mysteries. Thanks for watching. Have you ever looked up at the stars and wondered if someone, somewhere, someday, will remember you were here? This deep-seated need to leave a mark, to shout into the void of time, "I existed," is one of the most powerful and universal human drives. It's a desire that has pushed us to build monuments, write epics, and carve our stories into the very fabric of the earth. Today, we re-journeying to the arid plains of southern Peru to explore one of the most enigmatic testaments to this desire, the Nazca Lines. Imagine a vast, sun-scorched desert canvas stretching for miles. Etched into this canvas are colossal drawings geoglyphs, massive, they can only be fully appreciated from the sky. We see a spider, a monkey with a swirling tail, a hummingbird with a long, delicate beak, and a figure that some call the astronaut. These are the Nazca Lines, created over 2,000 years ago by the Nazca culture. For centuries, these intricate designs lay hidden in plain sight, their true form invisible to those walking on the ground. It wasn't until the 1930s, with the advent of commercial flights over the region, that their breathtaking scale was truly revealed. So, how did they do it? The technique was surprisingly simple, yet ingenious. The Nazca people created these lines by removing the reddish-brown, iron oxide-coated pebbles that cover the surface of the desert. This exposed the lighter-colored, sandy soil underneath. Because the Nazca Desert is one of the driest places on Earth, with minimal wind and rain, these shallow trenches have been preserved for millennia. The sheer precision and scale are astounding. Some lines stretch perfectly straight for miles, while the animal figures are rendered with incredible artistic skill. This wasn't a haphazard project. It required careful planning, sophisticated surveying, and a massive community effort. It was a conscious, deliberate act of creation on a monumental scale. This brings us to the biggest mystery of all. Why? Why would a civilization invest so much time and energy into creating art that they themselves could never fully see from the ground? Archaeologists and historians have proposed countless theories. One popular idea is that the lines were connected to astronomy. Perhaps they were a giant celestial calendar, aligning with the sun and stars to mark important dates, like solstices, which would be crucial for an agricultural society. The hummingbird, for instance, might signal the arrival of the rainy season. Some lines do seem to align with celestial events, but many don't, leaving this theory incomplete. Another fascinating theory suggests the lines were part of water rituals. In such a dry environment, water was life. The geoglyphs might have been ceremonial pathways that people walked along while praying for rain. The animal figures, like the spider or monkey, could be deities or symbols associated with water and fertility. Imagine processions of people chanting and praying, tracing the outlines of these giant sacred symbols etched into the earth. It paints a picture of a community deeply connected to their environment, using the land itself as a place of worship, a giant, open-air temple. But there's another layer to this, a more profound, existential one. What if the Nazca Lines were not just for the gods, or for tracking the stars? What if they were a message? A message to the unseen, not necessarily aliens, as some popular theories suggest, but perhaps a message to their own gods looking down from above. A way to say, look at us. See what we can create. We are here. It's an act of communication on a divine scale. And what about a message for the future? Could the Nazca people have envisioned that? One day, beings from a distant futurist would soar through the skies and gaze down upon their creation. It's a mind-bending thought. While they couldn't have predicted airplanes, the act of creating something so permanent, so grand, speaks to a desire for legacy. It's a fundamental human impulse to transcend our own mortality. We know our lives are fleeting, a brief spark in the cosmic timeline. So, we build pyramids, we paint masterpieces, we write stories, and we etch giant figures into the desert floor. We do it to leave a piece of ourselves behind, a whisper that echoes through the ages. This desire isn't unique to the Nazca. Look at the cave paintings of Lascaux, where our ancient ancestors left handprints on the walls. A simple yet powerful declaration. I was here. Or consider the Voyager Golden Record, a gold-plated disc sent into deep space, carrying sounds and images of Earth. A greeting card to any extraterrestrial civilization that might find it millions of years from now. From ancient handprints to interstellar messages, the medium changes, but the core impulse remains the same. We want to be remembered. We want our stories to be told long after we're gone. The Nazca Lines are more than just an archaeological puzzle. They are a profound reflection of the human spirit. They represent a collective effort, a shared belief, and a deep-seated need to connect with something larger than oneself, be it the cosmos, the gods, or the future. They are a testament to human creativity, ingenuity, and our enduring quest for meaning and permanence in a transient world. When you think about it, what we do today isn't so different. We post our lives on social media. We write blogs. We create videos like this one. We are all sending messages into the future, hoping someone will listen, hoping someone will remember. The Nazca people created their message with stones and sand, a message that has endured for 2,000 years. It reminds us that while individual lives are short, the human story is long and interconnected. We are all part of a continuous chain, receiving messages from the past and sending our own into the future. The Nazca Lines challenge us to think about our own legacy. What mark will we leave on the world? What message are we sending to those who will come after us? Perhaps the greatest lesson from these ancient drawings in the desert is that the desire to connect, to be understood, and to be remembered across the vast expanse of time is what truly makes us human. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the heart of a human mystery. If you found this fascinating, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you won't miss our next exploration. What do you think the Nazca Lines were for? Let me know your theories in the comments below. See you next time. Let's journey back to the vast arid plains of southern Peru, to a place where mystery is etched into the very earth. Welcome to Chapter 19, the eternal watch of the sky gods. Imagine standing in the silent desert as the sun dips below the horizon. The air cools, and the sky transforms into a breathtaking canvas of stars, a celestial dome glittering with countless points of light. Down below, sprawled across the landscape, are the Nazca Lines' immense geoglyphs of animals, plants, and geometric shapes. These figures, so massive they can only be truly appreciated from the sky, have rested here for nearly 2,000 years. As darkness deepens, something profound happens. The constellations that wheel overhead are the very same ones that the ancient Nazca people gazed upon. The same Southern Cross, the same vibrant swirl of the Milky Way. It's a direct, unbroken connection through time. The creators of these lines are long gone, their language lost, their rituals faded into memory. But the sky they worshipped, the celestial bodies they tracked, remains their eternal companion. Think about the spiritual dimension of this place. These lines weren't just art. They were a vital part of a sacred landscape, a cosmic dialogue between earth and sky. Were they offerings to powerful sky gods? Beings believed to control the precious resources of water and life in this harsh desert? Perhaps the hummingbird, with its frantic energy, was a plea for fertility. Maybe the giant spider, a symbol of rain in many ancient cultures, was a prayer for an end to drought. The monkey, with its tail spiraling like the cosmos, could have represented a connection to the cycles of the universe. The Nazca people lived in a world where the divine wasn't confined to a temple. The gods were in the mountains, in the rivers, and most importantly, in the sky. The stars and planets weren't just distant lights. They were active participants in life, their movements dictating the seasons, the harvests, and human destiny. The lines, therefore, might have been a way to mirror the heavens on earth, to create a sacred space that aligned with the cosmic order. Some theories suggest the lines functioned as a massive astronomical calendar. The long, straight lines, some stretching for miles, seem to point to specific celestial events. The rising or setting of the sun at the solstice, or the positions of significant stars like Sirius. Imagine ancient priests or shamans walking these paths, performing rituals at precise moments when a celestial body aligned with a specific It would have been a powerful, awe-inspiring ceremony, reaffirming their place in the universe and their connection to the gods who ruled it. But what if their purpose was even more direct? What if these figures were designed not just to be seen by humans on high ground, but to be seen by the gods themselves? The Nazca people might have believed their deities resided in the sky, looking down upon them. These immense drawings would have been an unmistakable sign of devotion, a permanent tribute visible only to the celestial watchers. It is a humbling thought, an entire culture dedicating immense effort to create art for an audience of gods. This divine presence is something you can still feel today. When you stand on the Nazca Plateau, you're in the heart of a sacred landscape that has been waiting for 2 millennia. The wind that sweeps across the desert floor seems to carry whispers of ancient prayers. The silence isn't empty. It's filled with the weight of history and belief. The figures lie there, patiently, under the eternal watch of the same sky gods. The creators honored, the spider, the condor, the whale day, are not just shapes in the dirt. They are sleeping giants, guardians of a lost faith. They remind us that for the Nazca, the boundary between the physical and the spiritual was porous. The earth itself was a canvas for their faith, a testament to their relationship with the cosmos. The stars were not just points of light, they were the eyes of the gods, and the desert floor was the stage for their eternal conversation. Even if we never fully decipher their exact meaning, the purpose feels secondary to the sheer power of their existence. Their presence remains divine. They are a monument to human ingenuity and spiritual devotion, a reminder that for centuries, this patch of desert was one of the most sacred places on earth. The Nazca people looked to the sky for answers, for hope, for survival, and in return, they inscribed their faith into the land itself, creating a legacy that continues to be watched over by the silent, eternal gods of the sky. This connection between the earth and the heavens, between humanity and the cosmos, is the enduring legacy of Nazca. The purpose may be forgotten, but the spiritual energy remains, a timeless beacon in the Peruvian desert. As we continue to explore these mysteries, we are not just observers, we are participants in this ancient story, standing under the same sky, feeling the same sense of wonder. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you found this exploration as fascinating as I do, please like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the world's greatest mysteries. See you next time. South of Lima, Peru, a vast, arid plain stretches towards the horizon. This is the Nazca Desert, one of the driest places on Earth. From the ground, it seems like a desolate, unremarkable landscape of rock and sand. But take to the skies, and a breathtaking secret reveals itself. Etched into the desert floor are hundreds of enormous figures, known as the Nazca Lines. Spiders, monkeys, hummingbirds, and strange, human-like beings sprawl across miles of terrain, so large they can only be truly appreciated from above. These are not just random doodles in the sand. They are geoglyphs, monumental works of art created by the Nazca culture between 500 BC and 500 AD for centuries. These enigmatic designs have baffled archaeologists, historians, and anyone who gazes upon them. Who made them? How did they achieve such precision on such a massive scale? And most importantly, why? Today, we journey into the heart of this ancient mystery, exploring the whispering sands to uncover the legacy of the Nazca. The Nazca culture flourished in this harsh environment long before the rise of the Inca. They were a sophisticated society, known for their intricate textiles and beautiful polychrome pottery. But their most enduring legacy is, undoubtedly, these giant lines. To create them, the Nazca people removed the reddish-brown, iron oxide-coated pebbles that covered the desert surface. This exposed the lighter-colored sandy earth underneath, creating a stark contrast that has survived for nearly 2,000 years. The technique seems simple, but the execution is anything but. The lines are remarkably straight, some running 4 miles without deviation. The figures are stylistically perfect, with flowing, continuous lines that suggest they were meticulously planned. How could an ancient civilization, without the benefit of aerial perspective, design and execute such colossal images with this level of accuracy? This question has given rise to countless theories, ranging from the practical to the paranormal. One of the earliest and most prominent researchers of the Nazca Lines was a German mathematician named Maria Reich. She had dedicated over 50 years of her life to studying and preserving these earning her the title, the Lady of the Lines. Reich believed the lines constituted a massive astronomical calendar. She proposed that many of the lines aligned with the rising and setting of important stars and constellations, as well as the solstices and according to her theory, the figures themselves might represent constellations. For example, the giant spider figure, with its distinctively long leg, could correspond to the constellation of Orion. The Nazca, she argued, used this celestial map to track seasons, predict weather, and determined the best times for planting and harvesting crops, a crucial ability in such an unforgiving climate. Maria Reich's dedication was instrumental. She single-handedly swept the lines clean with a simple broom, mapped them meticulously, and fought for their protection. Her small hut in the desert is now a museum, a testament to her unwavering commitment. While Reich's astronomical theory is compelling, it doesn't explain everything. Many lines don't seem to align with any significant celestial events. This has led other researchers to propose different ideas. One popular theory, championed by archaeologists like Johann Reinhard, connects the lines to water and fertility rituals. The Nazca Desert receives less than an inch of rain per year. Water was, and still is, the most precious resource. Reinhard points out that many of the lines and figures are located near ancient wells or point towards water sources in the mountains. He suggests the geoglyphs were part of religious ceremonies, sacred pathways that people walked along while praying for rain and agricultural abundance. The animal figures like the hummingbird, which is associated with rain in many Andean cultures. Orthispider, symbol of fertility, would have been powerful icons in these rituals. Imagine processions of Nazca people, walking these giant lines, chanting and making offerings to their gods, asking them to bless the dry land with life-giving water. Another fascinating idea is that the lines served as a kind of clan or family map. Each large figure might have represented a specific kinship group or lineage. Creating and maintaining their symbol in the desert would have been a communal activity, reinforcing social bonds and territorial claims. The straight lines could have been processional routes connecting these symbolic territories, used during important social gatherings or religious festivals. This theory frames the Nazca Lines not just as art or a calendar, but as a living social document, a map of their society etched onto the very earth they inhabited. It's a compelling thought that this vast canvas wasn't just for the gods, but for the people themselves, a way to organize their world and affirm their place within it. Think of it as a giant, sacred family crest, visible for all to see. Of course, no discussion of the Nazca Lines would be complete without mentioning the more speculative theories. The sheer scale and precision of the designs have led some to believe they could have been created without help from above. In the late 1960s, author Erich von Däniken, in his book Chariots of the Gods, famously proposed that the Nazca Lines were landing strips for ancient astronauts. He argued that the figures were signals to extraterrestrial visitors, and the long, straight lines were runways for their spacecraft. While this theory captured the public imagination and made the Nazca Lines world famous, it lacks any archaeological evidence. Scientists point out that the desert floor is far too soft to support the landing of any known aircraft, and the lines themselves are only a few inches deep. Moreover, this theory dismisses the ingenuity and skill of the Nazca people, attributing their incredible achievement to outside forces rather than their own creativity and hard work. So, how did they do it? The answer is likely a combination of simple tools and sophisticated planning. Archaeologists have found wooden stakes at the end of some of the straight lines, suggesting the Nazca used basic surveying techniques. To create the large, curved figures, they could have started with a small, 2-scale drawing on a grid. Then, using ropes and stakes, they could have scaled up the drawing on the desert floor, plotting out points and connecting them to form the final image. It's a method that requires a deep understanding of geometry and proportion, but it's entirely achievable without advanced technology or aerial flight. The continuous, single-line style of many figures also supports this idea, as it would be the most efficient way to create a large shape from a smaller model. The Nazca were masters of their craft, using their knowledge of the landscape and simple mathematics to create something truly monumental. The mystery of the Nazca Lines is not just about how they were made, but about the culture that vanished, leaving these silent messages behind. The Nazca civilization began to decline around 508, likely due to a combination of factors, including a series of severe droughts and floods. As their society collapsed, the purpose and meaning of the lines were lost to time. What remains is the visual evidence of their beliefs, their fears, and their relationship with the natural world. The figures are a window into the Nazca cosmology. The monkey, a creature of the distant Amazon, speaks of trade and contact with other cultures. The killer whale, a powerful ocean deity, shows their connection to the sea. The hummingbird, spider, and condor link them to the sky, the earth, and the spiritual realms. Each figure is a piece of a puzzle, a symbol whose full meaning we may never completely grasp. Today, the Nazca Lines are a UNESCO World Heritage Site, protected but fragile. The same climate that preserved them for centuries now poses a threat. Climate change is bringing more unpredictable weather, including rare but damaging rainfall. The Pan American Highway cuts right through the area, and illegal mining and squatters have caused irreparable damage to some of the geoglyphs. In recent years, the challenge for us is to preserve this incredible legacy for future generations while continuing to respectfully study it. New technologies like drones and satellite imaging are allowing researchers to map the lines in unprecedented detail, revealing fainter, previously unknown figures and offering new clues to their purpose. Every new discovery deepens the wonder and respect we have for the people who created them. The Nazca Lines challenge our modern perceptions of what ancient peoples were capable of. Without computers, without drones, without even a written language as we know it, they transformed their world into a canvas of immense proportions. They created art for an audience they may have never intended to see it from above, whether it was their gods, the stars, or simply a future they could not imagine. The desert remains quiet, holding its secret tightly. The Nazca Lines remind humanity of art, faith, and a mystery that stretches beyond our comprehension, a silent message written to eternity. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey into the past as fascinating as I did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more adventures into the world's greatest mysteries.